Hello. We are going to go over chapter 5, the hardest chapter the whole semester. I hate that we can't be together, so I'm going to do the best I can. My hair's a little flat and crazy today. Got my big old overcoat on. I could probably turn off that light. Let me turn off that light. That's better. Okay. So chapter 5 is the hardest chapter we have. At least we get it over with, but I wish we could be together for it. I have a couple of videos already out, old videos that talk about classical conditioning with the chalkboard or whiteboard. So I'm using it to write on, which is a lot better than trying to describe it, but I'll still describe it here so you have more. And then we also have another short video on operant conditioning and using the whiteboard so that you can see the notes and because I write, it's like a process, and it's easier to see if you have some visual stuff. So do watch those videos. They're in there with the chapter 5 notes and stuff. Okay. All right. So we're going over our chapter 5 study guide, which was due Monday the 30th at 8:30. And so this will be what we would have done in class for that day. Chapter 5, the definition of learning, that's what this chapter is about. It's about how life changes us. That's what learning means. We're not talking about learning in a textbook like you do with class. That's not what this is. This is how life changes us. How everyday experiences make us a different person. We learn lessons from everyday life. So, my head's so itchy. Remember the behavioral theory that we talked about in chapter 1? It's one of the attempts to explain human behavior. And it said that our behaviors and thoughts and attitudes come from learned experiences from life. We start off with a blank slate and we become who we are based on what's happened to us and what we've been through and experienced. Well, this whole chapter is about the behavioral theory. That's what it is. This is how life changes us. So that's definition of learning: relatively permanent change in behavior due to experience. Relatively permanent means it's pretty set, but relatively meaning you can change it. You can unlearn something. Think about the bad habits you've had in your life. You pick them up, biting your nails, cussing, whatever it is. But then you got rid of them probably. You've gotten rid of bad habits in your life before. So that's the unlearning part. So it's relatively, in comparison to other things, it's pretty strong, but you can't unlearn. It takes some effort, but you can do it. So change in behavior due to experience. So we have to see a change. You are different now than you were before because of this experience you went through. And it can be small. We're not talking about life huge issues. It can be you stubbed your toe in the middle of the night, so now you put a nightlight in because it was too dark and you couldn't see. So you're changed, your behavior changed. You now have a nightlight in your room. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be these big catastrophic ideas, experiences, losses or whatever. It can be just small everyday things that we learn constantly. A squirrel in our backyard. We put a bird feeder up, and the squirrels have been eating it, so we've been trying to get rid of the squirrels, or not get rid of them, but keep them off the bird feed. And so we put something called a baffle underneath of it, which is this big dish thing that blocks their climb up. But they're jumping from the deck onto that baffle now. So we keep adjusting things about that bird feeder, try to get the squirrels not to be able to jump on that bird feeder. But so every day when they're successful, they learn they can do it. And so the next day they know to try. And they do. So then we change it up a little bit. And it takes them a while to build up their nerve. And then they try and they're successful. And we're both learning in this situation. They're learning they can do it. And we are learning what we're doing is not working. So we're both changing our behavior daily. They have to jump a little differently every time we adjust it and do something different with it. And we learn we have to make an adjustment to the bird feeder because, to try to keep them out. So it's simple, everyday things. Animals learn the same way we learn. Your dog, you're going to have all kinds of examples of your dog, your cat, your fish, birds, your kids, your siblings, your boss, everybody and everything that's alive learns this way through these life experiences. So it's examples are rampant. It should be easy to think of examples for that forum that's due Monday today, because today's all right. Anyway, I shouldn't put any kind of dates in our videos. So question number 2, and why are these not numbers? Well, that's a pain in the rear end. My thingy isn't numbers, they're just bullet points. That's not cool. Anyway, we all edit it as we go along. 1, 2. Okay. So question number 2 is list the 3 basic types of learning, the ways we learn. These are the 3 things that we're going to cover in this chapter. Classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning, sometimes called modeling. So that's the answer to number 2. There's 3 kinds of learning. And then we spend the rest of the chapter going over those 3 kinds of learning. So the first was classical conditioning. It's the first learning theory devised, the first time we examined how experiences change our behavior. And so we start with it first. So it's number 3, defining classical conditioning. This is, I'll put it over here. How huge. Okay, I need to crop it a little differently. Ooh, that's better, but it may not stay up. Okay, that's a little better. No. Classical conditioning. That's learning through association. That's the fancy kind of definition. But we learn by connecting stimuli or events together, experiences together. If we listen to music, a certain song, at the same time that our boyfriend breaks up with us, then we might connect that song with that breakup so that we feel the same way toward the song that we do toward the breakup, good or bad. Our brain likes to make these kind of connections or associations between things. They call them stimuli, a stimulus. It's an event or an emotion or whatever, but it's an experience. So, tons of examples of classical conditioning. We just gave one when we talked about the, well, no, we didn't. Okay, well, let's give one. Your dog hears the rustling of the food bag and comes running. Gets all excited. He hears your car pull up and he starts jumping all around and barking. Somebody knocks on the door and he starts acting up. Your cat hears the can opener and comes running into the kitchen. Your kids seem to know the time of day it's time for bedtime and start to throw a fit about it. Your dog hears the water run in the bathtub and runs and hides because he doesn't want a bath. These are all examples of classical conditioning. You smell the air outside in the spring and you remember the trip you took last year. You walk in grandma's house and you smell her famous chocolate chip cookies baking and you remember times in the past, the Christmas or whatever where she made them. So these are just lots and lots of examples of classical conditioning. And goodness, I wish I knew this. So that's question number 3. So when we think about the examples of this in our life, there's tons of them. They're everywhere. Smells, sights, music is a good one. I'm sure there are songs connected to different events in your life and experiences and times in your life. So now you have a reaction to those. Smells, someone's cologne or perfume, or the smell of certain food. The smell of the leaves in the air may remind you of the state fair and, the weird food they serve and the greasy stuff, or maybe, it could be good or bad experience. Everybody's unique. And this is what makes us all different, is because we've all had different experiences that make us react differently. Okay. Food aversions. You ate something, got sick. Now you can't stand the sight or smell of it. That's classical conditioning. The sight now makes you sick. Talking about it upsets your stomach. Ugh. It's classical conditioning. There's tons. It's everywhere. It's daily examples. So that's number 3. Number 4, I'm going to put a number up here. Number 4, who's Ivan Pavlov? Pavlov is the guy who came up with and got credit for classical conditioning. I'm sure people realized it before then, but he gets the credit. He was a Russian physiologist. He was studying digestion in dogs. He was not a psychologist. And what he was doing was studying saliva production in the dog, how much spit they made. So he had a little tube, and you can go online and see videos, actual footage of it. But he had a little tube connected to the dog's mouth, and it would collect the spit that he made when he ate food. It's one of the first steps in digestion, so he would do that. And he found that this dog, which is a natural reflexive reaction to make spit to food, this dog started to have this natural reflexive reaction when he didn't even have food. Like, he started making spit before he got food, before he had it in his mouth. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's a biological reaction. So why in the world would, he make spit if there's no food there? Well, he decided the dog is predicting food is coming. Remember that goal we have of prediction? What's going to happen in the future? So he was predicting food was going to happen because maybe he heard the footsteps coming out the door, or saw the door open, or maybe he saw a dish in Pavlov's hand or the assistant's hand, and he knew that food was on its way. So either way, something told him food was coming. He connected something to getting the food, and his body reacted as if he already had the food to this something. So you have the same response, it's just two different stimuli. All right. Then he got distracted because he thought it was fascinating this dog was making spit. So he started doing things like ringing a bell, and he could get the dog to make spit to the sound of a bell. Flashing lights, metronome that keeps time, tick, 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 tick. Anything that he did right before he gave the dog food, consistently, the dog would end up connecting to getting food and making spit to that thing. So he got distracted from his work and started taking off on studying classical conditioning. So there's a lot of jokes about Pavlov's dog, about people being Pavlov's dog on TV shows, media, everywhere. So now maybe you can get a joke a little bit better. It just means you're well trained to respond to something, and you got tricked. You didn't even know you were learning it. A lot of times classical conditioning happens that way. It's accidental. You don't intend, I'm going to remember this song in this moment for the rest of my life. It just happens because it happens close together in time. So your brain puts them together. All right, that was number 4. Number 5, I think that's all of number 5, is just looking at these terms. All right, so here's the problem. This is where it gets complicated, okay? Classical conditioning is really easy. I think so far you can probably think of 6, 7, 8, 9 examples in your life of classical conditioning. Somebody's cologne, a song, the smell of popcorn at a movie theater, the smell of your elementary school when you go back in, reminding you of times when you were little. It's everywhere. And when you don't know it's going to happen, you just get hit with a flood of emotions or feelings that you didn't realize you were going to have. It's easy, except we make it difficult in psychology. You know how we are. We use terminology to understand it. We have to break it down and understand how it's specifically happening, because only then can we control it. And that's one of our goals. We want to be able to control things. So we have to know what's happening to be able to stop classical conditioning when we don't want it to happen, or to make it happen when we want it to happen. So we got to learn these words. The definition of these words is stupid, really. It does not help much. I have neutral stimulus first. A stimulus is anything that can cause a reaction. The lights turning on or off, sounds, smells, being hit with something, thoughts even are stimulus, but we're usually talking about outside stuff right now, external things. Hearing something, whatever, anything can be a stimulus, okay? As long as it causes a reaction, or it's meant to cause a reaction, it's a stimulus. Now, what's weird about a neutral stimulus is that it's neutral. It does not cause a reaction. So that's kind of strange, but that's why it's neutral. It doesn't impact us. It doesn't cause us to do anything. Then you have another set of words that you need to know. So you need to know what a stimulus is. It's any event that happens in the world around us, anything we can experience. And then we have a response. And a response is a reaction to a stimulus. So life is about stimulus response over and over again. Think about it. You don't have to do this maybe anymore, but your alarm would go off before this virus stuff. Your alarm would go off and you'd hit the clock. Maybe you'd cuss. Maybe you'd groan. Maybe you would feel unhappy. Okay. that reason that you feel that way is you've connected the sound of the alarm with getting up, with going to school, with going to work, or whatever it is. So you've put those two things together. Your stimulus is the alarm going off. Your response, hit the clock, turn it off, groan, whatever. Your phone rings, you answer it. Stimulus is the phone ringing, response is answering it. You have a conversation with someone. They say something to you, you reply back, stimulus, response. They say something, you answer. Your answer becomes their stimulus to respond to. And that's how it goes back and forth. Maybe you're used to eating lunch at noon, and so you happen to notice it's noon, and all of a sudden you're hungry. The time is the stimulus, and the response is feeling hungry. Okay? Life is just stimulus response. A light turns red when you're driving. You stop. Stimulus, red light, response, stopping. It's just constant. Okay? All day long. Stimulus response, stimulus response. The other set of words you're going to find in this list, and this list should be called the elements of classical conditioning. I'm going to write that in. Elements of classical conditioning. That's what we call these. These are the parts of a classically conditioned reaction. Unconditioned stimulus is the next one. So we have unconditioned and conditioned. Conditioned means learned, trained. You've been trained to respond a certain way. It's a learned thing. We'll use that word in everyday life. I've been conditioned to expect or think something. So that's what condition means. Well, unconditioned means unlearned, natural reflex. In its original form, in its classic form, classical conditioning, is really about connecting and responding to stimuli. The first one we naturally have a response to, like the dog did with spit and food. And then the second thing is the learned response. But in real life, it can be learned connected to learned, but I guess don't worry about that right now. But unconditioned means unlearned and conditioned means learned. So then we have neutral stimulus. We have an unconditioned stimulus, which just means anything that causes an unlearned response. I know it's weird. So I'm telling you, it's not very helpful. You need to watch that other video. Conditioned stimulus. So that means a trained stimulus. Anything that causes a learned response. This is just not very helpful, I don't think. But unconditioned response is a natural reaction to something, like spit to food. And then conditioned response is a trained response, like he made spit to a flashing light. All right. A response has to be something we're capable of doing as a reaction. Number 6, describe what happened to the dog. Oh, we already did that. He made spit before he got the food. Move on, number 7. Oh, so in between 6 and 7, I'm going to write in here see video in Moodle on classical conditioning. I think I called it, what did I call it? It's up in the notes. My lecture on classical conditioning video. I'm going to call it that. My lecture on classical conditioning video. Okay, so do that now. I'm not going to go over that stuff again. But go watch that video. Because what you're going to have to do on the test and what you had to do for your forum is for the test, I'm going to present you with a classical conditioning experience, and whether an animal or human, and then you're going to need to label the elements. So you need to find the unconditioned stimulus, neutral stimulus, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, conditioned response, the 5 parts. And that's on that other video. I go into great detail. I have the board with me. You really need to see that. I'm not going to talk about it here because it's just not enough. I've already done it, and it's better over there. Okay, so you've come back from that video. Stimulus generalization, number 7 on our study guide. So our brains and bodies can be tricked. We can respond to a brand new stimulus that we've never been around before as if we've already been trained, okay, on our responses. When that happens, we say we've generalized the original learning situation to the new situation. Remember, we use the word generalized in research, case studies. We said that it's really bad to generalize. You can't generalize. We need to be able to take something from a specific and say it applies to a larger group. What we're doing here is we've learned something specific in one situation, but we can be tricked into other things that are similar, and we'll respond to those too. Let's go back to Pavlov's dog, the example with his dog. So he rang the bell and gave the dog food, rang the bell, gave him food, rang the bell, gave him food, rang the bell, gave him food. Eventually, when the dog heard the bell, he knew food was coming and he started making spit to the bell. Well, Pavlov trained him on the same bell every time. And he thought, what would happen if I picked up this other bell that sounds a little different? He picked that other bell up and rang it. The dog made spit. I'll be doggone. He had never learned to make spit with that bell before. He had never heard that bell before. But it was so close to the original bell that it tricked him. So that's the Pavlov example. This would be where it used to be everybody's phone rang the same way. So when someone's phone would ring, you'd pick yours up thinking it was yours. Or on the TV, you'd pick yours up thinking it was yours. Because it was so close to the sound of your phone that it tricked you. Your dog gets tricked by the sound of a doorbell on the TV. It's not the real one, but he starts barking. You have a bad experience at one doctor appointment, and now you're scared to go to all doctor appointments. You had a boyfriend, a girlfriend that cheated on you every time they said, I got to work late tonight, honey. Now you get with a new boyfriend or girlfriend, and they say they got to work late, and you get upset. These are all examples of stimulus generalization. You learn something the first time, and then you react to other things that remind you of it, that are close enough. It tricks you. And so, number 8, see, I don't know if these are all separate or not. Define stimulus discrimination. That is the opposite of generalization. If you discriminate, you can tell the difference. That's really what discriminate means, is to tell the difference. So instead of picking up your phone when you hear somebody else's phone ring, you know it's not yours. Instead of being scared of all doctor's offices, it's just that one doctor's office. Instead of your dog barking to the doorbell on the TV, he only barks to the real doorbell. Instead of getting upset with the new boyfriend or girlfriend that says they got to work late tonight, honey, you would only get upset with the original one. You can tell, he rang the new bell and the dog did not make spit. The dog, you guys, you can tell that it's not the same thing. So you don't react to it. I mean, that's the goal of therapy half the time. Stop your conditioned responses to situations and people. They're not the same people as the other ones. Then we have extinction. I'm not sure if this is number 9 or if it's just another like ABC or something. But define extinction. Extinction is the unlearning that we talked about. If something becomes extinct, it's gone. It's disappeared, just like dinosaurs. So we mean it the same way here. Extinction is the process by getting rid of a conditioned response. Remember, we can unlearn things. That's the fancy name for unlearning. So Pavlov's dog example. How do you think we would get the dog to stop making spit to the sound of the bell? That's what we're trying to do. We train him to make spit. How can we stop him? Tick, tock, tick, tock. Well, that hair's crazy. We separate the bell and food. The only reason that bell and food go together, the only reason he's responding to the food or the bell is because they've been presented together. So if we separate them and stop putting them together, the bell will go back to being neutral. It was once neutral. Then we pair it with food. Now it has meaning. We break that pairing with food. We break the association and it goes back to being neutral and meaningless. So we stop ringing the bell when we give him food. Or actually, we stop giving him food when we ring the bell. So we ring the bell and nothing. 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 Eventually, he won't react to the bell because it doesn't mean food's coming. The only reason he reacts to the bell is because it means food is coming. No food following eventually. No exciting bell. Doesn't mean anything to him. All right. So that's extinction. The other examples we've been using, you go back to that doctor's office and you don't have pain and you're not scared of that doctor's office anymore. You got to go back to the original. It's getting rid of the response to the original thing. The doorbell in your house rings and your dog doesn't get excited because the doorbell randomly rings. Maybe you've got a problem with your doorbell. It rings for no reason. Nobody's there. He doesn't think it means anything anymore, so the doorbell rings and he doesn't get excited. You get back with that old boyfriend, girlfriend, and they say, I got to work late tonight, honey, and you hire a private eye, and you find over and over again that they're not cheating. You don't respond to their, I got to work late tonight anymore. It doesn't bother you. That's extinction. The next one, number 9 or 10, I think it's number 10. Spontaneous recovery. And these are the principles of classical conditioning, by the way. Doesn't say that up there. I don't know why. Spontaneous recovery is after extinction, so after we got rid of the reaction, sometimes it comes back. That's what we found with the bell. He got rid of the dog's response to the bell by not giving him food with the bell anymore. And then he went a while and didn't do anything, and he picked up the bell one day and rang it, and the dog made spit. So it can recover. The reactions can come back spontaneously without any more training. But when they come back, they're not as strong and they go away faster. So you might one day walk in that doctor's office and feel fear again after not feeling it for a while. Your dog may bark at the doorbell ringing after not barking for a long time. Just comes back. You get back with that boyfriend, girlfriend, they say, I got to work late tonight, honey, and all of a sudden you feel uncomfortable. You've been past that. It's not been a problem. So those are examples of spontaneous recovery. All right. Number 11. Is it better for the conditioned stimulus to follow the unconditioned stimulus or vice versa? It doesn't mean anything. Think about it in terms of examples. That's why I had you do that form where you had to present examples. The more examples we can use and think of, the better off we are going to understand this. We understand through examples, not definitions and formal descriptions. It doesn't mean anything to us. It's got to be personal. So instead of thinking of conditioned stimulus and unconditioned stimulus, think of Pavlov's dog example. So the conditioned stimulus is the bell. It's the new thing we've learned to respond to. Remember, you've watched that video already. The unconditioned stimulus is the food. It's the thing that naturally elicits the response of salivating. So, is it better for the food to come first, then the bell, or the bell, then the food? Which one's needed? Now, of course, the bell has to come before the food. We ring the bell, then give him food. Ring the bell, then give him food. The only way the bell's going to have meaning is if it's followed by food, because the reason the bell takes on any meaning is because they know food's coming. If you gave them food, then rang the bell, food would predict the bell was going to ring. Okay? We need for the conditioned stimulus to become the conditioned stimulus, we need it to be followed with an unconditioned stimulus. The bell has to come before the food. Okay? That's the way you need to think of it. I think this is number 12. Does the number of pairings of the unconditioned stimulus and conditioned stimulus make a difference in the strength of the conditioned response? Gosh, jibber jabber, whoopee doo. Let's put the bell and the food and stuff in there. Okay, does the number of pairings of the food and the bell make a difference in the strength of the salivation? Yes. We need to do it more times. Ring the bell once, give them food once, ain't gonna make it. Some things in our life are one time only and we learn. Like we eat something, get sick. We do not need to keep eating that to develop a response to it. One time's enough. But for most things in life, it needs to be repetitive, especially something as unconnected in the world as a bell and food. We got to ring the bell, give him food. Ring the bell, give him food. Ring the bell, give him food multiple times before he makes that connection, because bells don't normally go with food in life. So, yes, you got to do it many times. More times, better. Number, I think, 13. Does the timing of the pairings between the unconditioned stimulus and the conditioned stimulus need to be different? Make a difference? Yes. If we rang the bell, 2 days later, gave him food, he's not going to connect those two things. The reason he connects them is because they go together in time. Okay? They happen around the same time. Couldn't figure out what that was. So, yes, timing's important. makes sense when you think about Belle and the food. Number 14. Who is Little Albert? Okay, now we're still in the thing. Little Albert was this baby. He was an orphan. He was used in research by a famous psychologist. They wanted to see if they could make him fearful of a white furry rat. So they used classical conditioning to train him to be scary of a white furry rat. Every time when they put the rat around him, he was happy and entertained by it because babies don't know to be scared of it. But after a while, whenever that little furry rat was presented, they put a big loud bong noise behind him and scared him. Every time the rat would be in the room, scared. Rat, scared. Loud noise. So now he's scared of the white rat. And that was successful. They were able to do it the way they, expected to do it. The problem is he was adopted in the middle of this study. And so he couldn't have his fear extinguished or removed. He left being scared of a white furry rat. But it was more than that. They found that he was scared of all white furry things. They had a white bunny come in the room, and he responded to that. They threw a section of white fur at him. He reacted to that. Turns out he had stimulus generalization. He was scared of all white furry things. And they didn't remove this fear. So, that was not good. And we had a lot of ethical changes and research happen after that. We said you cannot leave somebody worse off than they were before the study. We never got to get rid of his fear. So number 14, who was Little Albert? He was that little baby famous in the study of generalization. Number 15, describe what happened to him. I just did. Number 16, how could we have or should have eliminated his fear? Well, we show the white furry rabbit with no loud noise anymore, or rat with no loud noise anymore. We just don't have the noise anymore. Eventually, he won't be scared of it because bad things don't follow the white rat. So that's how we get rid of it. If you're scared to go in the water, didn't your uncle throw you in? They have you experience it with no bad consequence over and over again, and you're supposed to get over your fear. That's extinction. Good place to stop. We'll pick up another video for operant conditioning.